Well, Charles, thank you so much for. Do you go by Charles or Chad?
Go by Chad. Charles is my real name that I was or named by
Oh,
birth.
okay. Well, Chad, thank you for helping me with my project. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about yourself.
For sure. So I recently graduated from St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. I studied finance and economics there, and I also ran cross country and track during my 4 years at St. Edward's. So that was something that I really enjoyed doing, and I still enjoy running. And I interned at Hewlett Packard Enterprise this past summer in the Office of Legal and Administrative Affairs under the Global Real Estate team. And then I've also interned at a land and minerals acquisition firm back here at home. So I've seen a couple of different industries and had experience with that. And I'm hoping to start full time soon. I've been applying to jobs and hopefully one of those will land soon.
Have you applied to anything in the aerospace sector?
I've applied to a couple at Lockheed Martin, and I'm waiting to hear back from those. But other than that, I haven't looked too much into it yet. But it's something I've been starting to keep my eye on more since more things are opening up.
Have you heard of a company called SpaceX?
I have, yes.
Any interest in working there?
Uh, there definitely would be some interest. I just hadn't really considered it, but it's definitely something worth looking at for sure, especially with what they've had going on recently with their own launch. So they're definitely doing well and continuing to grow for sure.
Well, I don't know how much you know about my project, but NASA's planning to put people on the moon in 2024, and I thought it'd be neat to kind of talk to a wide range of people um, and get their perspectives on it. And so I guess first off, did you know that NASA is planning to go to the moon in 2024?
I did not know. I actually thought, or at least the last recollection I had of NASA was them being defunded a little bit and then them receiving some more funding, but I did not know that they were planning a moon landing project in 2024 now.
And most of the people I've talked to also didn't know about it.
Mhm.
NASA is really active on social media, but I think if you know, there's like no, if the algorithm hasn't picked up on interest in space related items, and that doesn't, of course, come up on your feed.
Mhm.
Um, and even it was even mentioned in the State of the Union address, and it's been covered in a few articles. But likewise, if it's not something that the news algorithm thinks you're interested in, then it doesn't show up. But I was wondering, what do you think it would take to make it more widely known?
I think a lot of it would just be sort of regaining an interest of space from the public. I mean, I guess making it more publicized, like you said. I mean, there was a lot of interest in the SpaceX launch from at least what I noticed, because I mean, Elon Musk was promoting that a lot from his own Twitter. And I mean, it's definitely different comparing Elon Musk to the director of NASA. There's a lot more protocol that goes in with that. But I think promotion from within, and from at least when you think of old space exploration, there was definitely a lot of promotion. And when it was a signal of innovation for the United States. And I think people having an interest in that kind of helps drive innovation and change leading forward. So, I mean, there could definitely be a change in interest on both sides, maybe talked about in some curriculums, something like that. I'm not for sure, but definitely both sides of promotion and recapturing interest would definitely help people know more about it and probably help it grow in the future too.
Yeah, did you see that Tom Cruise is planning to film a movie on the International Space Station, and he's actually bought a ticket or is going to buy a ticket on SpaceX's rocket?
I'd heard a little bit about it, but I hadn't read too much into it, more into it. But definitely think that would be interesting and very cool to see for sure, like a more inside look into that.
And what do you think about space exploration? Do you think it's something essential that we do, nice to have, or kind of like maybe a misdirected priorities? How does it fit in your world?
I would say I don't know if I would call it essential, just because I'm not in that realm of work, but I'd say it's definitely something nice to have. and it's a way to propel innovation in technology in aerospace, and it definitely helps capture the imagination. People like knowing what's out there. They're interested in seeing pictures of potential planets, black holes, or at least I am, and I know my sister is as well. But it's definitely something that's used to capture the imagination and helps drive the innovation for sure, whether it be in aerospace that can then be used for the public or governments, any sorts of groups like that.
And whenever you think about humanity and the world 500 years from now, if you were to just to kind of project forward your most optimistic vision, uh, do you think we're still only on the Earth at that point, or do you kind of expect for us to branch out, and what would that look like?
I think there would be a way to privatize space travel, because I mean, I would assume NASA would mostly use it for research, government development, that sorts of things. But I think companies like SpaceX are helping lead the way of more access to space. And I think that could definitely be something in the future of people being able to travel to closer planets that are habitable, and then the technology that goes along with that, allowing people to step foot on a different planet, could definitely be made easier for sure.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest impediment to making it so that private people could travel?
I would assume some of it would be funding. I'm sure a lot of it would just be people having to recapture their interest in space too. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what's out there, and I mean, it's definitely a massive expanse of almost anything because people don't know what's out millions of light years away. So, I mean, definitely more research could be done to persuade people to go into space, and then along with the technology and funding to make it easier and less expensive down the line for sure.
And have you heard of SpaceX's Starship?
Not particularly, no. Is that something that would allow them to stay in space longer and travel compared to just the regular rockets they're sending up? Or how would that work?
Oh, well, basically, one of the problems with space exploration today is that all the rockets are expendable, and SpaceX has been recovering their first stage, and they're working on recovering like the payload fairings and of course the Dragon capsule. The
Mhm.
second stage is still um, expendable, but that allows for them to essentially reuse the rocket multiple times, whereas a lot of like United Launch Alliance, their rockets are one-time use and they have to rebuild them
Mhm.
completely. So the Starship is going to be first 100% reusable. So you only have to pay for the fuel, and you'll be able. And the fuel is like a really small amount of the cost.
Mhm.
Um, and then the second thing is, it's going to be the most powerful rocket ever built to be able to carry 100 people at a time.
Mhm.
And the third thing is they're planning to make it so that it's really able to be used for many, many different purposes. For example, Earth to Earth travel. So you'll be
Mhm.
able to go from, say, Houston to Shanghai in like 30 to 40 minutes
Okay.
instead of, it taking like 18, 19 hours
Yeah.
on a flight. You'll be able to use the same rocket to, the same system to take you into orbit. And you'll be able to use the same system to take you, to the moon or to Mars. So the idea is that this is this is like the utility vehicle. And the other really important part is it's actually being built right now. They're
Mhm.
building it in Boca Chica, Texas, which is right next to Brownsville,
Okay.
and they're planning to mass produce them, like producing like 2 a week, each of which could be used like multiple times per day.
Mhm.
So, I mean, can you just imagine how that, if they're successful in that endeavor, how that transitions society and transform society to think about things being possible that were previously thought as being impossible.
Definitely. That would accelerate that process immensely compared to looking at 50 to 100 years. If that, I don't know how long exactly it would take, but that process would definitely speed it up for sure and increase the accessibility definitely.
Yeah. Um, well, if it was safe and affordable, would you have an interest in traveling into space yourself?
If it were safe and I had more of an idea as to what was out there, yes, but at the current state, I would not have an interest right now. I would just need to know what's out there more before stepping into space for sure.
And did you have any like additional comments before I stopped the recording?
Um, Not too much. I mean, I just found your project really interesting, and then it definitely provided a lot more insight into what was going on in the space community and space exploration. And I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and interview me. It was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, I hope these interviews are sort of like a time capsule. And like 2050, I imagine a middle school kid having to do a history project on what were people thinking right before we went back to the moon again.
Hmm.
And then, they could like look through these recordings and say, oh, there's something good for my class project. So that's sort of the perspective I've been taking on it.
For sure.
So well, I'll go ahead and stop the recording then.